Gunderson.
Here.
David.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have quorum.
Thanks, sir. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Y'all hear me okay? I think so. Yes, we'll probably have to use our mics today, you guys. I'm just gonna pick mine up when I speak. It seems to be the easiest way. Okay. All right. We have the minutes, 2 sets of minutes. First set is our regular meeting July 30th and the special meeting from July 28th. Everybody get them?
Yep.
See them, read them. Any corrections? Additions? Okay. Looking for a motion.
we approve those 6 minutes.
A motion for approval from Ginny.
Second.
Second, Denny. Thank you. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passed. Okay, one case tonight. Case is PPUD F25-02 Mansfield Land Use Consultants for JB Donaldson Company. This is the final PUD and site plan review. And with that, I'll give you Tammy.
Thank you. As you mentioned, this is a final plan unit development and site plan review for multiple family residential development. These are vacant parcels, 011918300032 and 300044, section 19 in Bear Creek Township. The applicant last Wednesday sent an email asking that this request be reviewed as a study session tonight. So I did want to though go through the information that has been provided to date and kind of do a summary of this case. You know the locations, they're south of Intertown Road and west of US Highway 131. Approximately 20.9 acres of land zoned FF1 with a preliminary plan unit development applied to this that was approved with conditions on March 6, 2025. And this was to develop multiple family development with 11 multiple family buildings containing 240 dwelling units, 96 one bedroom and bath units, and 144 2 bedroom, 2 bath units. The proposed development also included the maintenance building, clubhouse, sidewalks, play area, dog park, pickleball court, and parking in a combination of outdoor carports and garages. The site is impacted by steep topography, and hopefully you've all had a chance to walk the site. It is just south of Anderson Road, right across Intertown Road. Commercial access exists on the property south of Intertown Road, and that's the access that's being proposed for this development. Emmett County Road Commission has reviewed and offered comments, so as we go through the preliminary approval and the conditions that were placed on that approval, additional information will be revealed, but the access and proposed alterations to the road intersection can be approved with conditions according to the Emmett County Road Commission review that we received. So the preliminary PUD in our zoning ordinance was approved, and the applicant then has 12 months to submit a final plan unit development plan, and site plan review can follow within 24 months total. The applicant submitted both the final PUD plan and site plan on June 4th, and there has been additional comments received and additional information received over the time period from June 4th till now. Following staff's preliminary review of the application packet, the applicant provided a revised submission dated June 12th, 2025. Since that time, we have also received additional information that I'll outline as well. Showing here is the aerial. You can see the land uses in the vicinity, mostly single family to the south, east and west. To the north, there's multiple family development, and then commercial farther north as well. This is a little bit closer view of the site. You can see the access just south of Anderson Road. You can see the parcel that is adjacent on the east side that has frontage on US 131 highway but is not proposed to be accessed into the highway. The existing conditions map shows the topography of the site, and it's overlaid on an aerial map so you can see the vegetation that exists. You can't rely on the aerial map and the lot lines to be exact as far as the on site-specific information, based on surveys and then based on on-site review and posting of the property lines, which has been done on the site. I think I've gone through this information. So, we have received the information that was outstanding from the original submittal. We received the review from Bear Creek Township regarding the sewer capacity study. Details would need to be determined by the township with the developer. That is not something that the planning commission reviews. The planning commission simply needs to determine whether or not there's sewer availability to the site, not the details of who's gonna pay for it and how it's going to be specifically developed. Review from the city of Petoskey regarding the water supply has also been received. The details would be determined by the city of Petoskey with the developer. Again, the planning commission, a condition of the preliminary approval was that the applicant provide information detailing whether or not public water is available to the site. Stormwater plans and calculations have been received and reviewed, and those are found to be compliant with the zoning ordinance standards, and an updated evaluation from our staff that has reviewed the stormwater plan has been received, and that was dated July 24th, 2025. Fire chief has reviewed, and we have no new update for the plan dated July 18th, 2025, but there were 7 conditions of approval that would have to be met by the developer through the fire department. Site distance and visual obstructions along the roadway are being addressed by the developer with the utility and will need to be coordinated with the Emmett County Road Commission. Property lines have been identified and property was staked for site visits with all of the buildings staked, including each of the multiple family buildings and then also the clubhouse. And then the planning commission would need to determine whether the proposed property line demarcation would meet the standards of the condition of approval at the preliminary level. So the proposal is to install wooden poles with no trespassing signs located every 25 feet around the perimeter of the development. And then landscape buffers, there were notes in the supplemental information that was received that indicated which areas would be automatically applied with landscape buffers, and then other additional 50 trees would be allowed to be added to the site as determined by the zoning administrator. That's the proposal by the applicant at this time. So site photos, we've seen these before, looking north toward Anderson Road and then looking south into the property from the driveway entrance. And then the interior of the site, mostly just vegetated. And then the berm along the sides of the entry. And then the preliminary PUD graphic. So you can see the buildings that were originally approved with the preliminary PUD, the clubhouse location and the pool location, and then the additional amenities, the dog park and the play area and pickleball courts, and then the open space around the perimeter. Boulevard entrance and additional screening and trees along the boulevard entrance. So the approved preliminary PUD plan is shown here with the cross sections down below, showing the cross section of the property as indicated there on the screen. Another view of that cross section from a different location. So the preliminary PUD was approved conditionally March 6, 2025. The final PUD plan was submitted, and it's my understanding that the applicant wishes to possibly amend this plan, but this was the plan that was submitted and reviewed by staff. You did receive a zoning evaluation at the last meeting dated July 30th. We provided an updated zoning evaluation for the Emmett County Planning Commission, but not for Bear Creek Township, because everything that you had received was included in that July 30, but there has been some new information that our Emmett County Planning Commission had not received, so we updated the plan to reflect that, which included the technical memorandum from the city of Petoskey, the updated fire department review, and the updated stormwater review, but you received that at the last meeting. This is the plan showing it in different sections, so you can see the pickleball court, the fenced play area, and the pool and clubhouse area on the left, and then on the right is the other end of the development, the proposed dog park and the buildings there. Community building elevation meets the standards for height. Final PUD plan for the perimeter. I included this so that you can see the different types of the buildings that were proposed. The perimeter setback of 50 feet is maintained on this plan. And then the different building types are identified. So the building type A is proposed as the 4 middle buildings. Building type F proposed for the 2 north and the 1 west building. And you can see that there's 2 levels on one elevation and then 3 levels on the other. So the north elevation on these one would be 2 levels and then exposed, and then south elevation would be 3 levels exposed. And then the type D building would be the 3 south and the 1 east building, so 3 levels there. And then the maintenance building, which meets the standards for height. And then you can see on the right-hand side is the location that was proposed for the waste recycle bins, and then maintenance building. And the screening is shown there in the middle. So the conditions of the preliminary PUD, exceptions were granted for parking spaces as allowed at 1.6 spaces per unit. The final PUD meets that exception and provides 1.7 spaces per unit. The height exception was allowed at 39 feet 8 inches. The proposed plan that was submitted meets the building height proposed at 39 feet 8 inches, so 39.75 feet. The development is required to hook to municipal sewer and water. This was a condition of the preliminary approval, and we have received letters verifying the capacity has been provided, and then the details will need to be worked through between the agencies that have jurisdiction and the developer. Landscape buffers to be provided to greater degree than shown on the plan. Again, this was a condition of approval. They increased the buffers along the driveway, and then additional areas as shown here along the east boundary near the clubhouse and the pool, as circled there. And then the landscape plan here shows the proposed landscaping as it was identified in the most recently received site plan. And there's the buffering that was shown. And then the applicant provided additional details and offered 50 additional trees. And then traffic study to be provided that addressed the MDOT concerns. The traffic impact study was conducted and provided. We submitted that to the Emmett County Road Commission, and the Emmett County Road Commission said that details would need to be worked through with the road agency, but essentially the concept was acceptable and it would be approved with conditions. And so this shows the detail that was provided. Additional detail would have to be worked through with the road commission to make sure that they were acceptable. And then the proposal from the applicant to demarcate the property lines will be submitted. That has been provided. The plan is to add trespassing signs every 25 feet on wooden posts. Proposal this evening is to review the materials submitted for a final PUD site plan, but also to hold a study session to address any outstanding concerns that this planning commission has. The final PUD plan is reviewed according to zoning ordinance standards of Article 16. Any conditions of the preliminary PUD approval, including architectural details, parking and access, lighting, design standards, landscape buffers, open space, infrastructure, and utilities. Any deed restrictions, any easements, covenants are executed and recorded, and then phasing plan is provided, or if applicable. And then the site plan would be reviewed according to Article 20. And that is all outlined in the zoning evaluations that we provide for every case. In the zoning evaluation also, we include a list of items that are outstanding. These are the 2 items that are still outstanding as far as direction from the planning commission. Proposal to demarcate property lines. The applicant has proposed the no trespassing signs with wooden posts every 25 feet. And then determine if that's acceptable, and then also determine if the landscape buffering is sufficient as proposed. And then site plan review standards, exterior lighting and signage will be reviewed by the zoning administrator. The lighting that has been proposed does meet our ordinance standards for full cutoff. And then signage would be reviewed administratively. And then the performance guarantee we would need estimated cost of the drainage system in order to determine what the performance guarantee amount would have to be. Okay, so now, some history. The June 25th meeting, the Bear Creek Township Planning Commission recommended postponement for the applicant to provide the following: stormwater calculations, which has been received and satisfies the ordinance standards. Water capacity and sewer capacity verification have both been received. Stake the southeast and southwest building locations and flag building heights. The staking was completed for all of the buildings and the clubhouse, and then graphics were provided relative to the building heights. 50 trees kept in retainer for screening as needed. That's something that still needs to be discussed, but that was offered at the June 25th meeting. Investigate power pole and overgrowth of a tree on the west side of the entrance. That would need to be resolved, and that is something that is in process according to the applicant's information. And then no trespassing signs, as we mentioned, placed every 25 feet on cedar posts. And then if this is something that moves forward, a PUD agreement would have to be developed by staff and the developer and final authorization by the planning commission, and then signed by the county administrator. And that would include any conditions that were placed on PUD and then recorded with the register of deeds. So on July 20th, this planning commission met. We didn't go through all of these details that we're going through today. The applicant had indicated at that meeting that they would like a special meeting for a study session that was identified for August 13th to review building locations and screening. General impression was that the existing trees and topography on the site would remain as is, and then the development would take place fully within the excavated bowl area. And then staking brought to light some of the existing berms that were planned for reduction or removal, and some mature trees would be lost either by removal or damage, so that special work session was scheduled. August 11th, Bear Creek Township canceled the special proposed meeting, and so then on August 20th, the applicant submitted the email that asked that this case be reviewed and be reviewed through a special study session at today's meeting. So that's the introduction from staff perspective. We do have several letters that have been received, and those were outlined in the zoning evaluation previously, but letters that have been received, including a letter or an email from Karen Dodge dated August 22nd, 2025. A letter from Town of Baldwin, which was distributed during your last meeting, that was new to our Emmett County Planning Commission. I did not receive a copy directly, but received one after the township meeting and provided that to the Emmett County Planning Commission. The email and letter from Mary Wilson dated July 30th, 2025, that was provided to you at the last meeting, and then Emmett County Planning Commission as well. The email from Karen Dodge to Brian Gutowski with the attached letter that was dated August 5th and July 29th, those were provided to the Emmett County Planning Commission, and I believe you received those as well. And then just yesterday we received, and I think you all received a letter from Karen Dodge that was sent and provided to you as well. So those are all letters of opposition that were received since the last meeting, and I believe that you have received all of those. I do want to point out that this is a final PUD review. The density, the height, the setbacks were all established during the preliminary, and that was approved as mentioned previously in the year. So this is final PUD and site plan review, but not for a decision tonight. Tonight will be a presentation by the applicant, and then your typical public review process, and listening to comments and concerns, and then any comments from you, but it's a case that would need to be postponed until the next regular meeting.
That's it?
Like some more?
Anybody have any questions, comments for Tammy before we go to the applicant?
I do.
There's today's.
Tammy, could you go back one page, please, to the... Okay, so at the last meeting, first bullet point there, the general impression was that the existing trees, topography on the site would remain as is, and the development would take place fully within the excavated bowl. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I'm sorry if I am, Jeff, you brought up the fact that it was not going to be within the excavated bowl. It was actually exceeding beyond that, and it was acknowledged that it was going past that excavated bowl. Am I correct?
Very correct, yes.
Okay, so that's,
That's what that said.
the impression, that was the impression given, but it was, again, brought up and acknowledged that it was going past that excavated bowl. Okay, I just wanted to make that known.
Okay. All right, Doug, would you, ready to speak on this case?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Can you hear me? The button, the mysterious button. All right, better?
Sounds good.
Better? All right,
There you go.
well, thanks for putting this meeting together. I'm Doug Mansfield, Mansfield Land Use Consultants, 830 Cottage View Drive, Suite 201, Traverse City, Michigan, here on behalf of J.B. Donaldson team with the Legends of Bear Creek proposed multifamily development. Tammy did obviously a great job outlining not only the project, but also the history, so we won't go through that. I have a lot of material to share tonight. It's gonna be a little bit awkward. I want people to feel free to question things. I want them to feel free to come up, you know, from, this is me reporting and working with the Planning Commission primarily. Done this in a couple different ways. Sometimes we're all huddled around a table. With a number of people here, we wanted to make sure that, you know, they were seeing as much as you can, but really, if you wanna come to the board and talk about or point out an area, I'm more than willing to do that because it's a big site and there's a lot going on with it. But I'm gonna go around the horn and of this project, around the perimeter and through the project, and tell you how we reacted to comments and concerns, primary comments and concerns taken from the last meeting. And then what we did about it, okay? I'm gonna deal with impressions versus plans, thoughts versus plans. I will say that the project in my mind has not changed significantly. If there was some miscommunications, I apologize for it. And we're trying to work through that. I wanna get back first to the mission of this project. When we initially took this under the most preliminary discussions through the preliminary PUD and that approval, it was about providing housing for this community. Okay, this area needs housing, and I just want to, and like most of northern Michigan, if not the entire United States. So we, as people involved in this, from this side of the industry and the township and local government, need to look at managing that growth, and that's what we're here to do. And then also decide what the impacts are for the developer and the township and try to mitigate those. So, I think at this point I do want to have Steve Rosenthal make some clarifications that came out in a couple of emails real briefly, and then I'll get started going around the horn. And again, a lot of material. If you need to come closer, please do so. So, okay?
Sure. Thank you. I am Steve Rosenthal. I am a co-owner and developer along with Bennett Donaldson from David Donaldson Company. I do want to thank the commissioners, Tammy and Denny, when he gets here, for the effort and resources and time you're spending on this proposed development with us. So thank you. I have been asked to respond to some inquiries about the makeup of the ownership group. This is atypical for us to do that, but I'm here to do that anyway. So I want to just clarify that Bruce Israel is not part of the ownership group of this development, full stop. Also, Bruce is not a manager in the management of the project, nor in the operations of the project. Bruce was just helpful because he's 40-year-plus resident of Northern Michigan. He helped us, resourcing people like Doug himself and others and finding the property. And that was really his act in this, in the project. So I just want to clarify it, and I hope that kind of puts that aside for now. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them. And any other questions along the way. I've been there with Chris works with JB, but with Ben along the way from the very beginning, from the inception of purchasing the land, and here tonight, and met a number of times with Tammy and Denny and others throughout the process. So again, thank you very much for having us. I look forward to the work session. The feedback, as developers, at first we kind of push back on feedback, but always, and when I say always, in every single development we've done, whether it be in Michigan or outside of Michigan, other places, because we've been doing this for 35 years, developing multifamily projects, both market rate and affordable, throughout Michigan and the United States. Feedback has always been the benefit, not only to us, but to the community. And we do, it's well received, and we do expect it, and it's very helpful. So the original plan, whether it be a month or 2 or 3 months ago to today, is greatly improved in our eyes, and I hope that we can provide that information to you tonight. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Well, I'm gonna wander, so I'm gonna use the whole stage a little bit here. And it's easier always if we just start with the entrance, and I'm just gonna do that. This is Intertown Road. This gray demarcation is the Anderson Road heading north. I don't want anybody to forget when we talk about this project that if the easements are secured, the developer will build approximately 2,500 feet of trail to bike standards along the west side at their expense. So that is part of the PUD, and it's an important part of the PUD because it's part of the reason we're looking at improving this intersection so much. So we are going to, at our expense, make this into a four-way stop with the appropriate decels and turning lanes, as the road commission wants, and also there's be a flashing red blinker there, along with the stop signs, because concern was at the last time about speed of traffic coming over that hill. I will remind you that the township now has the potential to lower speed limits themselves without doing a state police traffic study. So if that's something you're truthfully concerned about, get with your township board. They know that there is a process, a legal process to lower speed limits. It used to have to go through the state. One of the things was we were gonna put a bus stop at this intersection. It was a loose request, and when we started going through this project in detail, what we've done is we looked at that bus turning off on the decel lane, knowing that it would be a large amount of the traffic is going to be turning left there. So bringing that bus stop just off the side of the road, having people collected or dropped off, and then trying to move that bus appropriately on Anderson and cross that lanes was not going to work. So what we did was we brought the bus stop interior of the development and gave it an appropriate turning radius so they can turn out and then make their maneuver there. It may not seem like a big thing to you, but the bus people will sincerely appreciate that, and it's a big detail. It's an expensive detail, and I just applaud the developers for being open to that. Then we move back up the hill here, and substantially what changed on this side is I set, after the last meeting and discussions with staff and the commissioners and the supervisor, I set parameters, new parameters in the office for the design of this project, okay? We're still using 1-on-3, one foot down for every 3 foot horizontally is the max slope. That's a maintainable slope, it's a mowable slope. It's what you'll see the road commissions using around your ditches and such like that. So there's no exaggerated slopes, there's one-on-ones or anything like that. Erosion will be maintained through 1-on-3 without any non-normal and practical methods, okay? So we haven't cheated that. But we regraded this slope starting with the retaining walls around the pool area and working north. And another one of the parameters was the worry, concern about having retaining walls, let's say 10 feet or higher, okay? It wasn't only the potential for injury, even though they would have been fenced, but also just the massing of that, landscape, okay, and how that would appear in the fabric of looking up the hills and through the site. So what we did was we tiered, started by tiering these walls. These are now 5-foot high walls, okay, with 5 foot in between them. They will be stone, cast stone, looking very natural. And then we started really tightening up our contours here in order to try to stay away from all the property lines. And we've managed to back this off about 15 feet from the property line. Before it was right up to the property line. Now in this area here, there's no real trees to protect, but it set the progress for how we were gonna look at grading throughout this development. This side of the road substantially stays the same until you get to the area of the amenities. And and I don't wanna go through the previous plans, we could do that all day. But what we've done is instead of stacking these east-west, the pickleball courts and the tot lot and such, we stacked them north-south, narrowed up the grading required for this corridor. And what was about a 10 to 13 foot wall now is a 6-foot wall extending around this area. And at this point, right by the pickleball, we're down to 2 feet high. And what we're gonna do is cap that part of the retaining wall so it provides a seating bench for the entire length of this property and wrapping and embracing the entire tot lot here. So it demarks the area and then also provides seating and a nice gentle landscape. You'll see more grading in this area here, but it's only a matter of 6 inches to 2 foot. It's not anything great, but it's just that room we needed to keep this shallow slope. Sir?
Doug, would you prefer we wait till the end of your presentation for questions, or can we,
You know
we
what?
ask during?
I see this as a study session,
Okay.
a work session, so go.
Okay, great. I want to back up a little bit. Your entrance there, stormwater drainage. You're gonna have a fair amount of stormwater coming down the hill towards the intersection there. What type of stormwater system do you have at the intersection there?
So there is existing drainage there, okay, and it's been useful, but it's not gonna handle the hard surfaces that we have coming down here now with the velocity. So what we've done is there will be a stone or underground bed, okay, similar to a septic field, okay? Same technology, pipes that create volume and they're perforated, and then stone bed, and that's sized for the appropriate storm. And we have good soils here for infiltration. So you won't see it when it's done, but there will be a chamber right here, an underground stormwater system. We specifically called that out, that will pick up, go to the low point, and then discharge it back into this bed, which is the underground. You'll never know it's there.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just add, this is the first time that any of us are seeing this
Yes.
proposal.
Right.
We have not seen this plan, I haven't seen any of it.
Right.
And so any details like stormwater runoff, if this is something that is acceptable to the planning commission, would have to come from the applicant to all of us for thorough review. And it would have to go back through, the staff review of, does it meet the stormwater standards of the zoning ordinance? Any change, all of these changes would have to be provided on a zoning ordinance compliant site plan. So at this point, this is a concept plan that we have not seen.
Okay, but it sounds like it's better for this board to be asking the questions as we're talking about them.
Yes,
versus
but I just wanted
waiting
to
and
clarify
forgetting.
that this is all new to all of us.
And I should declare that, Tammy said it and Steve said it. We are not looking for any kind of approval. We wanna know if we're headed in the right direction to solve some major problems. Then we'll willfully come back with all the detail to get all those agencies to review it again.
Doug, do you want the hand or the mic that you don't have to hold, like the over the ear? Is that easier for you?
I'm fine,
Okay.
you know.
We have it if you want
Okay,
it.
I know, but we're all getting by here, so
Okay.
let's just have fun with it. So anyhow, all of a sudden this area, which became a fairly imposing area, is now a welcoming piece of the landscape fabric for people waiting and watching their kids. We didn't diminish the size of any of the amenities or anything like that, or cheat it, but it just happened to lay out that much better. And then, like I said, the top of this wall won't be over 6 feet, okay? And that's on these plans. I'm gonna move just around the site now. And it's gonna get a little hard, so if we need to take a break or something and somehow work through some of these, we can do it, but actually, I'm gonna start from where Denny, your supervisor, took me first, and that's over to this corner, okay? When the ground was staked, the sites were staked, this corner was just over the ridge of the slope. Meaning that the parking lot and everything else, east of there, the garages and those kind of things would have been, on fill, requiring a fill slope and tree removal and retaining walls. So we took this entire south section and shifted it over 70 feet from where it was, okay? We also eliminated some of the parking. And when I say that, we actually have more parking now than we had before. So it all works out. That's where we said the plan will evolve. Now that we're up on the bench of this property more, we reduced our clearing limits and the need for a retaining wall to just this small segment here that's only 5 feet high, okay? And this is outside the normal use by right setback of 25 feet. It is into the PUD setback somewhat. None of the other amenities are that way that wall is. But we were able to reduce our tree clearing some 90 feet in this area and another 80 feet down around this corner. So this area is going to be much more natural here and further away from the road.
Doug, when you said you moved that whole section 70 feet, which way did you move it?
So we took all this and shifted it this way, to the west, okay? So,
Doug, when you're turning your head, can you bring the microphone? over?
yes,
Thank you.
so it's like steering and not, yeah, okay, yeah. So, yes. So I'll go over these cross sections we have of all this, okay? But the other thing we did, when we worked that around and saw where the stakes landed in terms of the vegetation and the slope, we moved all the buildings off the PUD set, the 50-foot PUD setback, and we moved those north here 15 feet. Now 15 feet doesn't seem like a lot unless you've been out to the site and said, boy, if this was up 15 feet, we'd be up on the top of that bench of that berm, okay? And again, when you're working on a slope like this, the hypotenuse of it is exponential of what you'll be saving tree-wise, okay? So that 15 feet allowed us to capture almost 30 more feet of trees along the south line. And as you'll see in the cross sections, we are within or over 1 foot. This berm that you talked about, it goes up, it comes up from the south, it benches itself for about 40 to 50 feet, and then it falls into the bowl. And again, these plans have not changed. So the goal was to meet the height of that berm, at least meet the height of it, maybe not the width of it, but the height of it. Because what does it really matter from the outside looking in if we meet that berm height as it is? And that's what we've done along this entire line, and I'll show you in cross sections. So we come up, it used to come up, it used to flatten out, and then we come down. Now we get to that same elevation and we come down more immediately. So we're expanding that bowl if that was what the intent was believed to be. So, so again, that was exponential how much trees we were able to save in this area here. Now, we took and again stacked and reworked this entire area where the main. Where the,
Here half the time.
okay, I'll try as soon as I can. I'm working with the planning commission, so I'll follow their direction. Thank you. So I redid this area completely, okay? We still have the interior parking lots between the buildings because that's the access way for the fire department, so we maintained all those requirements. And just shifting the maintenance building around and a couple of other things, we're eliminating some parking and some green area between the buildings, not on the perimeter, but on the buildings. We're able to push this and again, we didn't increase the furthest distance west that it was before, but we compacted that area. We provided actually circulation around that maintenance area and to ease movements for those utility trucks. And then we got it back out, back on the road with all the proper turning radiuses. Now, that 15 feet then, by moving that north, came out of this middle section, okay? So that, what was 100 feet between the buildings is now 70 feet from the farthest extents of the building. There's a design standards when you're doing these projects. The rules of thumb, we'll call them, that your distance between the back of these buildings should be about 1.5 times the height. So we're just using that minimum standard, that rule of thumb, to achieve that. Also understand that in between these buildings, not only is it green space and public amenities, the picnic tables, grills, those kind of elements, but also we have our stormwater beds, again, hidden in the grass of this area here, so we don't end up with big retention holes in the ground. The other area we really took, I'll just swing around here. This had a tall retaining wall on this side of it. That is now tiered into 3 5-foot walls, so again, it won't have the massing impact. And if the idea was that that was dangerous, then we've eliminated that issue. And again, stayed well clear of the 50-foot PUD setback. The dog park was a trick. This is where, if you've been to the site, there's a cavernous hole where they put their spoils, okay? And then it comes back up. It is a very complicated part of the site. Because we believe it's filled with stumps and this kind of debris is probably not the best thing to build on, so we've always avoided it. Now, so what I did was we actually, behind these garages, there's a retaining wall that goes down 5 feet. So this is actually, the dog park is below the parking lot 5 feet. And then we used some shallow retaining walls around this corner to again attempt to maintain as much as we can all the trees in that 50-foot buffer zone, okay? Because if you remember, this came down quite a ways in its impact before. And there'll be a stairway and a handicap ramp to get into the dog park, but that'll isolate that and even further. So we maintain more trees along this side. This area here was a reworking of the foundation plans for the buildings and also the entire theory about these two buildings. But what was a almost complete elimination of where the big existing hill was right at the corner of the property when you're looking north on Anderson. We've only had to take that down by 3 feet. That used to be about 18-foot high cut, and now we just couldn't, using standard practices, we got it down to less than a 3-foot loss. So all this, right in this area here, is 10 to 12 feet higher, depending where you are on the grade, than the finished floor of that building. So 13 feet of that building is covered by a berm, and that'll be replanted. And again, we've taken the northern buildings, and we took that 15 feet out of this middle area, and took those off the property line another 15 feet to save trees across that entire length. And we don't feel that cheats the plan or the circulation at all. So that's another big accomplishment coming up that hill, because that hill is actually steeper coming up that by about double than this area coming up from the south. So exponentially, we gained a lot of height out of the natural earth and trees preservation.
Doug?
Yes, sir.
If I went back out there tomorrow and looked for the flags at where to be the 4 corners of your buildings, are they gonna be the same what they were along that front edge there, or has that changed?
Okay, they have not been moved yet, okay? But next week, and we'll realign, and this time, what we're gonna do is put both the finished floor elevation on it, and then we're gonna put the cuts and fills, okay, at the corners, so you can see, yes, because it's hard. It's hard to look level, it's hard to understand the cut and fills, but in each corner, we're gonna say, hey, cut 8 feet or cut 6 feet, you know, and that's how far down to that finished floor it's gonna be, okay? And that's about as best as we can do. But yes, they will be moved back, okay? And they are going to have the ground floor staked with them along with the cut and fills. Because it was hard to understand, and I get it. And you know, it was just that night that we kind of found that out, that it's hard to stand on this hill and understand you're cutting down 16 feet and what that looks like. But we are extremely happy with how the grading in here turned out, because we know a lot of the public view shed is down that road. So all in all, we looked at every perimeter, we looked at the berms on here, and tonight, I'm gonna leave one set of plans here, okay? And I'll email those to Tammy tomorrow, okay, of what was shown. And then we'll get it restaked. But if we're headed in the right direction and meeting the goals and you know, of getting rid of these mass retaining walls, which we've done, meeting the intent of the berm, okay, and the height of that berm provided, so we're doing that. And then also moving the site and providing more clearing on the south along the perimeter. So I want to go over, and Chris, could you help me just pin up, you know, maybe 1 or 2 of these cross sections so you can understand what you're looking at, okay? And what is important. A is a good one.
Doug, while he's doing that, I got a question. When you're talking about, say on that, south of that berm, that you say now, most of the berm's gonna stay there. So is the building, part of the building, the 3-story building then, going to be built into that berm? Or is it all going
That's a
to,
good way to look at it.
or is it
yes.
going to sit on top of that berm and go 3 stories up?
No, the intent is, you're at the elevation of the bowl. We're just hogging out some of that dirt that was the berm, but we're achieving the same height that the berm provided, so.
Judy, if I understand this correctly, the buildings that will go on the north side of this project, those 2 buildings there, they have garages underneath. They are F buildings,
Correct.
and F buildings, they have the garage on the main level, and then there's only 2 stories above that. So this
What
was,
about the south side? Do they have garages underneath that that are gonna be built into that berm?
no, that's a different building.
Well, that's the ones I'm talking about, those south side ones.
Oh,
See, cause I understand the garage is going into the berm and then the building
yeah,
goes above it.
yeah.
Cause the garage doesn't need a window, doesn't need egress, it doesn't need
Sure,
anything.
sure.
But the south side, I wouldn't wanna see, I could see having the berm coming up, but then if the building's gonna sit on top of that, it's gonna be higher.
Those buildings are building D, I think.
So let me go through just a couple of these cross sections, because what you're building on right there is exactly what I was charged with. That's my understanding of it. So this is a cross section of building A. Building A is located, this is always opposite, or actually it's cross section A. That's this building in this corner right where you were talking, okay? And this is the existing grade taken from a true survey, okay? This dark heavy line is the property line here, and this is the true grade coming up along this green line. And this is the elevation, the top of that existing berm. So the existing grade is shown through these cross sections. It's like this. And so I'm meeting the highest elevation that exists on that berm right now. When I meet that, I'm coming down in this area here, but the height and the highest tree are protected on that. And then, we're moving down to this area. So the existing berm in this case was 889, an elevation above sea level of 889. The finished floor on this area, and it changes dramatically, and that's why we did so many. This is, the finished floor is at 886. 886 is about the elevation of the bowl, okay? Minus about 6 inches. So all that is shown on these drawings, and you can see that, and how this is the natural berm here. And we're just cutting that back in this area, okay? And then again, that 15 feet on a slope is exponential savings. This one is, cross-section D, is actually at the top, right at the corner. The clubhouse is right here. This is that first building where that big hill is. If you stood on that hill, you went, how are they ever gonna build that? This finished floor is at 880, okay? Which is about the natural grade of the shallow part of the bowl. The existing elevation on this was 902, so there was a almost 20-foot difference when you were standing on that hill looking at those stakes. We had a stake here and here. There was 20 feet elevation change right there, so it's really confusing to understand. But with what we did with the grading, the top of this berm now is at 893, 893, I'm sorry. So we only lost a couple of feet off the top of that. And we were able to save all the trees around in here. And then we'll be able to replant those trees on that excavated berm. So in this case, you're right, this is a F building, okay, that has the garages out front. And then we either contouring, or we try to show it both ways. We're trying to contour around the side of the buildings, okay, where the parking lot and the fire department has to get. And then there are areas in the back where we'll be building up against this wall and saving that entire green space. So it really worked out well. So, and again, these were pushed another 15 feet off the PUD setback of 50 feet. And that's with the normal side yard setback would be 25 feet. So, and from perspective then, all these trees well within our property line are being protected and saved. These trees are scaled in at about 35 feet high too. There's higher trees out there. There were trees that were that high and lost 10 or 15 feet of their leaves and branches over the term of this project. So what gods do, we try to prepare for and provide an example. And I had a couple other cross sections we can go through, but they did similar things. And I want you to know that that's the parameters we use to try to meet your goals in the deck.
So you basically have kind of shrunk it in this way. I mean,
Yep.
moved it to the left, to the west, but
The west.
shrunk it kind of.
Yep, and that did all
But
that.
same number of buildings.
Same number of buildings. Actually, I think we're at 1.8 parking spots now, closer to the 2.
You're what, I'm sorry?
We're at 1.8 parking spaces now, instead of, the 1.6 we were approved with, and the 1.7 or so that we reported last time, so.
How did you end up with more parking
where's
by
that from?
condensing it?
It just, we took out some garages, okay, and that kind of thing, and then, also, when I had the previous drawing, on a grid format, which this is, kind of a traditional square grid block, appearance in the design, there was a lot of inefficiencies. It looked great, it balanced great, but it really only supported the people that, live there, okay, and we're about, maximizing, the perimeter right now. So when I had to offset some of these, I picked up spots where there used to be a loss due to curves and curbing and those kind of things. And it just so happened. And then we went through and we looked at every area and where we could pick up something, so.
Doug, with the condensing, did any of the sidewalks are all the sidewalks still in place,
And we took,
interiorly?
right, so we did have, okay, where I had, and I still have it in a couple points, where I had this happening, where it was really efficient, no. You know, where people were gonna cross the street, and we wanted people to cross the street, we did not remove any of those sidewalks. We did have somewhere we offset it, where the sidewalks, we didn't want people crossing the driveway in that area, so don't give them sidewalks to do that. So it's just maybe a couple of 20-foot segments here, but the circulation is good. Oh, so if the feeling is we're headed in the right direction, the next job, we can engineer sewer and water and grades and stormwater all day long. The next thing is, we're gonna go through this then and say, all right, landscaping buffers now. Now that we've done the grading plans, we've identified also corridors in the plan where there are gaps, okay? And we can fill in those gaps, appropriately. And again, you know, looking at the understory, especially on the south side, especially after this ice storm, I mean, the understory got crushed, basically is what we found out there. And that's, until that debris subsides, and, you know, I have my cottage on the east side of the state too, it's not good. So, until that debris subsides and crumbles and goes to ground, we're gonna have some issues, so we have more gaps now than we had before to fill in. But we've recorded those, and when the guys come to stake it, again, they'll record more of them, and we can fill in those areas. So, the only thing left and to discuss that really came out of the last month's meeting was this idea of fencing the entire property. The demarcation wasn't enough, for some. And the owners have never done this on any of their projects, with the same, diametrics or population studies that you have. So I guess we need to get that on the table, but we're really happy with the bus stop, we're happy with the road commission, we're happy, with all the grading, we're happy with what we achieved. I will tell you, myself, a landscape architect and an engineer worked for probably a solid week together to go over every instance and say, hey, what if we did this and that? This is, and meeting all the fire department requirements and building code requirements and stormwater requirements and all those things. I'm gonna tell you, this is about as good as we can make this project, okay? We really worked hard to tweak it. In the next couple of days, if you see something, again, like I said at the previous meeting, the plan only improves. You know? So if you see something and say, it's okay to send, you know, through the supervisor, Tammy, or however the channel of communication needs to go, say, hey, what if you tried this? You know, because there's always, you know, 10 ways that people can look at this, and this is your community, you know, we understand that too, so. Steve or Chris, did I leave anything out?
I think just for clarity, I know it's been something that they want clarity in, I don't necessarily need that,
Okay.
so my wife tells me I have a loud voice.
Okay.
So I just wanna make sure that where the building elevation is, I know you're gonna stake it later on if we move forward with it, to make sure that we're clear that the building elevation, first floor, right, ground floor, is with, kinda in the limits of the bowl, or if it eats into the berm, it still is down in that same elevation. I just wanna make sure that it's clear, cause it was a little fuzzy.
Right, yeah, the elevation these buildings are at, we're not filling any of that, except for creating proper drainage and these kind of things, you know, they will be smoothed out. But we are not placing these buildings up on the berm as you see out there today. And I'm sorry, and I should have thought about that with the guys, that it's hard to people to visualize that.
I guess my only other thought is, is it necessary to have that many buildings? Could you almost eliminate the 3 on the south side? I mean, is it really necessary?
Those are some of the most populous buildings, they're 24 units apiece, that's 75 units. that's his.
I get it, but I mean, it's a major project for that area, and I don't know, it's not the only project here in Petoskey going up, or it's not the only one that you're building here in Petoskey. And I look at the one that's going up on Standish Avenue. It's major. It's major. I have a hard time comprehending people renting these. They're 3 stories high, there's no elevators. So you're limited on who you can rent to. I don't see that influx of, I don't see it as needed for the everyday person here. So for having it that large, personally, it's too big for me. I would have to eliminate, to me, I would want less buildings, but it's just me.
Okay, so we'll look at the demographics and population studies and meet with the housing north people again.
Because most of the people that are coming north now are retirees. They're moving up here to retire. The workforce people, it's hard to get them to come here. So it's retirees. A retiree, I'm not gonna live in there at my age to walk 3 flights of steps. I'm not gonna walk 2 flights of steps. I can't, or I soon won't be able to. So you're gonna be limited on who can rent there. Yes, your young workforce people can, but then again, I don't know how many. It's tough, you know?
Well, so, I mean, this is where I get back to the mission. So maybe we need to have some of the local people that are involved in housing these people in the hospital and these kind of employers talk about the staff that they need. And, I mean, these guys are in the business of building homes for empty, for no lights on. The other thing is, understand that, we are working with the township on the pill idea and establish the affordable ratio at the 80 to 120 of the average area median income, which, will satisfy a different part of the market. So if I did remove these buildings, this row of buildings, where would it just be more green space? Would it be active space? What would it mean to you?
Well, personally, what I would rather see go in this area is condos, little condos, clustered housing, that type of thing, to me, would be much more suitable than 3-story high apartment buildings that you can't get to the top floor because you don't have an elevator. That, I guess I would rather see clustered housing type stuff, would be, to me, where somebody could go buy that. That's the problem. Young people are trying to go out and buy a house. They're trying to get away from renting. And we need that kind of housing that's affordable for the young people.
So getting back, and maybe we need to invite and have a conversation real briefly at the next meeting with the people that are doing the study and the housing needs assessments and make sure we're on par. Okay, so point one.
Just my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's
I always have one, so.
I have a question, just getting back to the site plan and the changes. So I get everything that's been moved and shrunk in. Just curiosity, had you considered lowering the height of the pole too? Did you play with that, and how did that work out?
Well, it wasn't much of a conversation. I mean, because generating dirt, and as soon as you gotta put it in a truck, because there's no place to put it anywhere else on the site, so we're trucking it off somewhere. Gets really expensive really quick unless you have a need. And right now, there's just no market that's telling me, hey, I could use hundreds of thousands of yards generated from, let's say, 10 acres of dirt. You take that down and I can do the calculation, but it ends up to be hundreds of truck trips, that somebody needs to put somewhere, so.
Same way it's created.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I guess I'm still not clear, how did you squish it in so much from the east to the west? What did you do with the mechanical buildings and all, getting that much room?
All right, so this was the existing one here, and we were about 70 feet off the property line in this area. When we took all this and moved it down, right here.
And don't get me wrong, I'm happy to see that too, because we had a huge concerns on that side.
So all this area here, before before was out beyond this garage line, okay? Now, if you look at it in this one, there's the garage line, and we stacked it north and south. The maintenance building is now here. So we, again, stacking it north-south, and the east-west picked up that area, so.
Okay, so you moved it all together.
And then we, okay, so we moved this, but didn't move this, and what that allowed, that's an area where we picked up a lot of parking, right in this area here, okay? So it really created some efficiencies, so again, the plan evolved, it got better, you know, so.
I think it's important I do have a couple thoughts, but just to preface this, that when we talk about the need for housing, it's more than just the influx of new people to the area. It very much is providing a need to the local people who live here. In my family alone, in one generation, we're gonna go from one home to 4 homes by the time you account for, my parents' home and then myself and all the siblings who are moving out. And that's in one generation. We quadrupled the number of homes we needed for our one family, and we're one family. And so if you think about the number of local people who live here, this new housing that's needed is not just for new people, it's for local people whose children want to stay here. So I think that's an important thing to note. And I wanna commend you guys who did a lot of work to really try to mitigate the impact on the neighbors, especially shrinking it in. A couple thoughts or questions. The access or entrance drive, that's a 4-way with a flashing light, is that right? Has there been any thought of adding on either side a flashing, like stop ahead sign? Just because of the speed of some of that traffic.
Well, fortunately and impactfully in Traverse and in rural areas, okay, we are running into this more and more, where people, it's not that they don't understand the word stop, but for whatever reason, the patterns are in their head and they can make those movements. In Interlochen, we did 5 years of rumble strips, and that worked extremely well. We did the same thing in rural roads that lead to Crystal Mountain, down in Benzie, and where you get outside Crystal Mountain, there's nothing for miles, but it's those lonely roads, and people tend to just think there's nobody coming, so, we've done those. Flashing, we get into, I had a discussion on my road outside of Traverse City at one point, and I said, boy, that hill coming down on sight distance, and should we have a sign? He said, sign, it's the old song, sign, everywhere signs. And he says it gets to the point where people just don't pay attention anymore. But the rumble strips seem to be the most effective thing to do. They've done that actually by Menards now on 31 because speed, things like that. So we are looking at alternates with them, but right now the flashing blinker, which isn't incredibly expensive, can be seen from all the way to Cemetery because the elevation change and those kind of things. Really that hump. But yeah, we're looking at those kind of mix of fixes, so.
I don't know how everybody else feels, but I feel like the mix of the flashing with the rumble strips would be better than the flashing light alone.
Sure, agreed.
Yeah, the bubbles, they'll wake you up, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any thought in regards to possibly getting a light at Intertown and the highway?
Through the traffic study, the warrants were not there, and that's MDOT's call, so.
I know, takes forever.
Yeah, and it's a bad.
It took us probably over 15 years to get a light at Picker Lake Road and the highway.
Oh, right. The complication with that is you've got such an extreme grade coming down to have that traffic stop or going back up again. So you got a stoplight on a road that's sitting at probably 4 or 5% grade. Yeah.
Doug, at that intersection, there in Interlochen, have anybody thought about a roundabout? Did that come up in your discussions?
Not at all, so, I don't know, I mean, it'd be the first thing they'd say down in Grand Traverse County, but, it seems to be.
Not up here.
Yeah, so.
See, that would slow the traffic down.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mandatory.
It does, and I've been in other towns, I mean, Marquette used to, was one of the first ones to have them. The primary access is so heavily favored that those in the secondary access points wait and wait and wait. So not that this one's like that, but we're learning the good and bad things, because you can end up with quite a stack of traffic when the other traffic, there's not a whole lot of, good neighbor things that are roundabout where people let you go, they're all just going around as fast as they can go, so we got a lot to learn, but yeah, yes, sir.
Well, I think what Emma was trying to refer to is that intertown eastbound, you have that hill. And right at the crest of the hill, normally stop aheads, signs and that kind of stuff are, if it's a 55, they're usually 550, 600 feet prior to the stop. That might exceed that distance, but if that had a stop ahead, and I think what she's speaking about is like just one of those amber flashing lights, they're warning you before you break that hill.
Yeah, I don't see it as being.
You know, those are, you can do those solar, it's not a big deal.
Well, if you're the planning commission, I don't think that's a deal breaker, so if that's something you'd like to see, and the road commission would ultimately have to allow it, you know.
I know of at least one other location in Emmett County where rumble strips were tried to be used to calm traffic, and it was a disaster for the neighbors that live right adjacent to that. When you say it'll wake you up, well, it'll wake up the people that live there as well, and they were taken out within probably 6 months of being
I
installed.
would imagine the road commission would like it plowed.
Probably not, but, that was a Little Traverse Township experience where they put them in and then took them out almost immediately after.
I would say if noise is a concern, then we should go with the flashing light.
Well, and there are homes from that point I'm talking about down to the stop and rumble strips. Isn't there some homes on the south side?
And aren't there some lights or some signs now that are activated by vehicles, as vehicles come? It seems like there's
I
one.
believe that's how the Intertown one is.
Yes.
Isn't that activated by traffic?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So it'd be similar to that.
Can we? I'd like to say something else too, Judy, when you were talking about the elevators and this and that. I don't know if you understood from an earlier meeting that all the handicap stuff will be on the first floor
I get that,
of all the buildings, that's, my boy,
But that's limited, it's limited to handicap.
he works for a company that does plumbing in buildings like this, and I talked to him about that, and he said, they're never putting elevators on.
I'm
Housing
totally
units.
surprised that the building code hasn't changed.
Yeah.
For multi-story buildings, an elevator is not mandatory.
Right.
Can I
Interject, go ahead.
interject? Yeah, I'm raising my hand first. Thank you. So just I want to respond a little bit to some of the commissioners' questions and hopefully be helpful. So we do a lot of research on housing in areas we go into, obviously, because it's our business and our investment. So we want to, make sure we, check all the boxes if we can. And so to your point, we do get a very wide range of demographics in all of our communities because we have first floor, which caters to maybe a different demographic than second and third, right? And so if we have 240 units in 11 buildings, there could be 70 units on the first floor that you don't need to walk up steps. I don't know the exact number, but so we do see a range of it. And what we also find, what we do, and what we're planning to do here is to offer some 80 to 120 AMI, a percentage of our community, maybe it's 20%, which will have, then we can. What we're doing is we're market rate, but also because people are leaving home from their families and they have jobs that can't support necessarily a higher than a 100 AMI, we know that we need to offer that, right? So this is really about us being partners with the communities we go into and making sure that we can hopefully offer that to more of the community, right? Not just be that higher market rate only, and we can have a wider spread of offerings to people. So we do that. So I just want to make sure, so we do the research. We do not want to have empty buildings, obviously. But I will say, at some point, the efficiencies don't work for developers like us either. Like, we couldn't build 100 units on this site and make the investment efficient for us, right? So there is that too. And we wouldn't build 400 units, not that you would let us,
but that would be too big, we believe, in that site. So we do kind of crunch those numbers. We'd love to have the, communications with the planning commissions, the commissioners, and try to understand what their thinking is, but we come to the community to be partners with the community, to offer, market rate housing, and a wide variety of that, and we build to own them. We own our communities that we build. So we've been doing it for a long time. I own stuff that are 25, 30 years old right now, and we've been in those communities for a long time. So happy to answer any questions of you.
Hi there. So I'm gonna be a minute, so I apologize in advance. A couple meetings ago, it was mentioned, I believe one of the very first meetings where the sewer and water infrastructure was mentioned. The comment was mentioned about proportional cost. I need that, I think we deserve that exact definition. What is proportional cost of those infrastructures, and what does that mean? How is proportional cost decided? How much is that? How much is it? Who decides it? I know Tammy said the planning commission does not, which is great, but who does? I think we're entitled to know that. And most importantly, proportional cost. I think we deserve to know what the impact is on the taxpayers. But so, I'd like to know what information you have about that.
Well, when the city came forth and said, we know we have capacities, if we change this and this and this, we want upgrades, however, more than what you need. Instead of an 8-inch line, we want 12 and 16s in certain areas. Those kind of proportional costs only come about when the bids come in, okay? But we'll pay for what's serving, we would have to provide for this if it was anywhere else, and there wasn't any question. 8 inches is gonna be minimum, okay? So we'll pay for all the 8-inch stuff. 12, 16 for future development headed in some other direction, that's their responsibility, and that's pretty normal, okay? It's decided by the city in that case, okay? Because the city owns the water system that has fingers in the township. The township doesn't have any part of that.
Okay.
So the sewer, right now is our entire responsibility, from here to the pump station. No one's, desired to extend that in any certain direction. And there's no future, ideas, okay? So this is all our cost.
So the water increases the city wants, proportional would be, that difference would be assessed to the city tax, this residents of the city.
You gotta understand, the water, you have your tax base, okay, that goes to pay for, operating the city council and the buildings, and then you have your fire millage and all those things. The water and sewer is an enterprise fund unto themselves, okay? They can't, so, and none of this is to the degree where, because the area that the improvements are in, okay, is something that can be assessed. One of the things they're wanting to do is loop. They bring water down here and we can loop it up Anderson Road and connect to those. And then they want a loop that goes up by Myers, okay? And they're saying, that's what we want as part of this project, okay? And we'll pay for that, okay? Because it improves our system, and we know someday we're gonna get lateral fees back, payments back as people hook up, because there's a desire there. So.
To the city of Petoskey water system.
Right.
So the residents of Bear Creek Township are not gonna bear any of the cost of these infrastructures.
Correct.
Okay, good, thank you. Getting back to, first of all, I do wanna acknowledge and appreciate the fact that we're having this meeting, I really do. I think that it's done for the right reasons as far as the respect. You're trying to include, and you really are trying to problem solve, I get that. But I'm concerned, it almost, is that our role? And I'm just asking this rhetorically, but also, I'm a little uncomfortable because I feel almost like it's a negotiation. If we do this and we do this and do this, will you approve our project? And are we setting a precedent that we're not comfortable with down the future? Or is every developer that comes in with a project that might be troublesome, wanna have a work session so we can work through it? You know, is that our role? I think I'm just asking that, all of us to look at that. Is that our role to do that, to negotiate with a developer to get a project developed? I don't think it is. I feel this is a negotiation to a point, so I'm just bringing that up. I know I'm on minutes. I really think we need to get back to the basics of this. You know, the planning commission's role. We look at the project, and I think if this were in an area that was not on our master plan as medium density, I don't think none of these conversations would be even being had. Expanding on what Judy made a comment on. Imagine the block on Standish with 4 more buildings in a medium density area. And I don't think it's appropriate. It's too, yes, I absolutely thought at the time, yeah, you know, I got it swept up into we need the housing, we need the housing. We do, we need the housing, but we still have to balance it with, does it make sense in the location, and does it make sense in the process? I'm just concerned that, are we going down the wrong road at the planning commission to negotiate with the developers to get a project approved? I'm just bringing that up. That's my concern. Ask everybody to think about it. Getting back to our role, I've tried, as I've been on the planning commission, to educate myself and get better. You're right. I know earlier on my tenure, I made some pretty rash decisions and probably based more on emotion than I should have been, or based on the PUD or the master plan. So one thing I want to bring this up is because the farther this project has gone, the more concerns I have about it, specifically the density, the same issues that Judy brought up. But I really need to think that we need to look at the Emmett County zoning ordinance, you know, specifically Article 16 of the PUD. And it says right in here, and I mean, I can't memorize 280 pages of the ordinance, I can't, right? So, Section 1601, qualification for a PUD, Article 16. This is in the Emmett County Zoning Commission. This is, I think we need to think about this. I'm not gonna go through the whole thing, it's way too big, just Article 16, but I think there's 2 points I wanna make. 16.01A, B, is the use of a PUD option shall not be for the sole purpose of avoiding applicable zoning requirements. To me, that means going from medium density to high density. That's how I read that. Maybe it's a simple version, but that's how I take that. C, and this basically says, to qualify, in order to qualify for the PUD option, all of the following minimum criteria must be met. C, the PUD shall not be allowed solely as a means for increasing density or as a substitute for a variance request. Such objectives should be pursued through the normal zoning process by requesting a zoning change or variance. I don't think that process was done, right? I know the master plan is a guide, but we've been told the ordinance is the ordinance, right? So, wherever this goes from here, I just need to make those thoughts of mine for the record. This is a work session. I'm not really comfortable being in a work session where we're helping bring a project to development. And I just need to state that in advance. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Anybody else have anything?
I guess I have a response to Jeff, and then I have a question for the planning commission. My response regarding the PUD as a tool, if I'm recalling correctly, the reason that, you know, originally when this case was presented, it was presented as rezoning, and then that was not the right tool, and so the tool that was chosen was the PUD. And I believe the reason that tool was chosen was so that we could use that to mitigate the impact on the area. You know, I don't think that the intention was necessarily for the sake of the density as much as it is when you have a PUD, you can require things like a fence or more trees or things like that, so that gives us the ability to do that. That's how I'm recalling that conversation. We haven't talked a ton about buffering yet or landscaping, but I would be, it's more of a discussion, question, or point to the commission than it is to any of you, or, you know, Doug. But, you know, last time we added or asked for the 50 trees. And in thinking about it, you know, over the last month, I don't necessarily think that's enough. What I'm wondering is, you know, A, do we just increase the number of trees? Or B, instead of setting a number of trees, would it be better to have, like, staggered rows of trees every so many feet across the bottom and then the two south corners? Is that better than just setting a set number? So I guess that would be my question. And then the other thing, when we talk about buffering, would be, you know, we haven't talked at all about height of trees if we do get to that point. But I would say the two southwest and southeast corners where you're really gonna have, to screen heavily, those should be required to be at a higher height. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on number of trees, or do you just require some so many feet staggered? Opening it up for questions.
We're at 10, 12 foot.
Yes, so instead of saying we want 50 more trees, we would say we want a tree staggered every so many feet, so it fills out. We just have a lot of other examples where that's done a really good job screening. You know, Elmer's, that for the most part, those are all alive, you know, and those are staggered. Myers, for the most part, those have done well. At the new fire hall are staggered trees in between the new fire hall and the residents. That seems to fit very nicely. So I'm wondering if that may be better than a number of trees, but I'm open either way.
Alright, you guys, maybe we'll take it out to the public now, if you guys are good. Yeah, we,
Before you do that, I think
sure.
I need to make a clarification with regard to Jeff's comments. The qualification for a PUD was established when the preliminary PUD was approved.
Okay.
Whether or not you agree with that now, you have to look at now the final PUD standards, because the preliminary was approved.
Okay.
It was approved by this planning commission, it was approved by the board, it was approved by Emmett County Planning Commission, so that's been established.
Okay.
To your point about what you're calling negotiation, I mean, the minimum standard is 50-foot setback. And the proposal, based on the feedback that was received, has been to increase that PUD perimeter setback, except in one location, which I think that does need to be addressed by the planning commission if that comes forward that way. But probably right now, because they're asking for some feedback, it should be noted that encroachment into the 50-foot perimeter setback should be not approved, because it wasn't part of the preliminary approval asking for exceptions, but maybe the height could be reduced to 4 feet, in which case it wouldn't be required to meet the 50-foot perimeter setback, it could be in the setback area. With regard to the other items that are being requested, I mean, the density meets the preliminary, the height meets the preliminary, the setback is being proposed to be increased. The items that really need to be addressed would be the screening and the fencing, and other items that you might bring forward. But to say, well, now we can't, now it shouldn't go here because we don't think it belongs here, that already happened, that already was approved. And now you're looking at the details of the plan to see if it can move forward. Now granted, it does indicate that preliminary approval doesn't guarantee final approval, but the conditions of preliminary approval have been outlined, and then it is your role to look at what's being proposed and determine whether or not it meets the standards and then meets the conditions that were placed on the original approval.
Okay, I appreciate that, thank you. Thanks, Tammy, you guys good? Okay, I'd like to open it up to public discussion. If you'd like to speak on this case, please step up to the podium, state your name. We'll have 3 minutes.
Hey,
Bear Creek Township. Whoop. Mary Wilson, Bear Creek Township, can you hear?
Yeah, you're good.
Not in my backyard is a term used when people oppose developments or projects being built near their homes. The proposed development on Intertown Road is, in our neighborhood, yes, a monster density being set in the middle of single-family homes with property zoned farm forest. At a recent town hall on the housing shortage in Emmett County, a comment was made that individuals may have to say yes in my backyard in order to help alleviate this housing shortage. So let's consider what this means for residents who are being asked to agree to this proposed development. Saying yes means traffic congestion and chaos in an area which has some of the busiest roads in the township, including Anderson, Intertown, Lears, and US 131. This proposed development would add upwards of 300 vehicles using these roads on a daily basis. The intersection of US 131 and Intertown is one of the most dangerous in the township, as rated by respondents to the 2025 survey. On one Emmett County Planning Commissioner called it a heinous intersection. When traffic concerns have been voiced at meetings, township and county officials and even the developer have said it often takes a certain amount of fatalities before anything happens. You get used to the traffic, and Road Commission and MDOT are typically reactive, not proactive. These comments appear to be oblivious to the huge traffic impact of these added vehicles on already highly congested areas. Saying yes means trespassing concerns on 13 private properties that circle this proposed development. The trespassing could also impact 12 other properties in the area. They will be upwards of 500 plus people living in this development and more than a few hundred pets. There is no barrier to stop anyone from walking in private wooded areas or having pets freely roam and allowing waste disposal. Residents are seriously concerned with protection of their property rights as well as fear of liability claims. Saying yes means the incredible high density of this proposed development, which means it is over 50 times greater than the surrounding homes. The high density goes against the Bear Creek Township Master Plan, which designates this area as medium density. This proposed development will forever impact the quiet enjoyment of the area, which is why the residents have chosen to live here and have built homes, raised families, and pay property taxes. Saying yes means having taxpayers pick up the burden of paying for development of water and sewer infrastructure for the area. The true costs, as well as who will pay for, have been vaguely addressed in the Planning Commission and township meetings. Nothing has been presented in writing in any of these meetings. In addition, future water and sewer line development will require residents to hook up to municipal utilities. This would be a substantial burden on the residents who have private well and septic. Extension of infrastructure will also allow expansion of other high-density development to continue south and east of the US 131 corridor. This is just the beginning.
Thank you.
Karen Dodge, Kemp Road. I'm gonna continue reading this, even though some of these items have been addressed, and I'm kinda surprised because this email just went out yesterday, so apparently there's been some conversation about some of these items, but I'm saying yes in my backyard, speaking to the violation of Article 16. I think that's already been addressed by Jeff, so I won't read through that. But in the zoning evaluation, the applicant's response to the two parts of the article are that the applicant is proposing different building types and many varied amenities as previously listed, providing opportunities for residents and fostering a sense of community within the development. I don't see how this answers the criteria about increasing density or a substitute for the variance request. Saying yes in my backyard to this proposal, saying that it's okay to allow a downstate developer to make a lot of money that will not stay in the community. This will be market value housing with approximate rental rates of $2,000 a month. Multiply this out for 240 units. And yes, there was the concern of involvement of a convicted felon being at these meetings and being a part of conversation for this, developing this. Saying yes in my backyard that this proposed development does not help with a population who need affordable, attainable housing. A draft economic development section of the Bear Creek Master Plan indicates the two largest sectors of employment in Bear Creek Township are the service and the retail industries, totaling 66.3% of all businesses and 80.2% of people who are employed in the township. Let's face it, this is a tourism area and it will continue to be for a long time. These jobs are typically not full-time, they don't offer benefits, and even year-round employment. So given these factors, couldn't the township and county look at and approve housing for which workers would be able to stay in the area and allow businesses that they are employed in to operate at full capacity? It was heartbreaking to hear a caseworker for the Salvation Army at the aforementioned town hall indicate the rates for new local housing in the area is still not affordable for the clients that she services. Attainable single-family home options are needed, and even residents in this high-density, market-driven proposed development realize this need. So in conclusion, the residents cannot say yes, and in fact continue to say that the proposed development should be denied. We emphatically say no. We do not want to be run over with a proposal that does not fit the area, and we realize the irreparable consequences. Growth should be thoughtful and balanced, not reckless and developer-driven or negotiated. Elected and appointed officials should not be enticed by a glossy site plan and promise of high revenue. They should represent the residents, both those property owners and those wanting to own affordable, attainable property in the township. We are continuing to tell you loudly and clearly, we do not want this in our backyard or for the township.
Thank you.
Let me get this to you.
I've got it,
Okay.
but thank you.
Carol?
Carla Buckmaster. Is that right? I just want to say that I appreciated what Jeff was expressing, and in his defense, perhaps he should have been advised by someone about what a PUD entails. But at least the next time this is thrown at you, you'll have an idea, and it's not a good one, not for this location. So thank you, Jeff. I had just written down a few things as I listened to this presentation that every now and then we could hear. When they talked about a bus stop coming into this plan, I know that at Pine Pond, and you were all, or no, not all of you, some of you were involved with allowing the bus stop to go inside their plan. That's not something you guys decide. You have to talk to the bus people who run the bus. You don't decide where that bus stop is. And I'm questioning whether there's room for the bus to turn around, whatever size bus it is, to turn around in that plan that they've shown. Also, I did yesterday, and maybe it didn't get forwarded on to you, I wrote to Tammy and had a letter, an email letter. I don't know if I got forwarded on to you. But one of my questions had to do with what our fire chief has said that he would do with the developers, and about fire safety. And one of the things was to have the buildings all being accessible. And then I'm sitting here listening, and I don't understand all these slopes and everything. I'm hoping maybe you guys know what that is, what they were presenting, all this new stuff. But I'm wondering, even before that, the new slopes and burying half the buildings and all, if there is total access for the fire trucks to get around those buildings, because it didn't look like there was a road going behind those buildings, the ones that Judy was asking about, and behind them. So what are they going to be maintaining? That was one of the things that Al asked for, that the access for fire safety be maintained. What are they gonna be maintaining? Can they even, I mean, with this new proposal, with 5 and 12 feet walls, is fire truck gonna be able to get around to all of that? And also, there's parking in front of those buildings. Can the fire truck get up to those buildings with the parking places? Is there outside for the buildings? These are 3-story high buildings. Is there outside access to escape from these buildings? How are people gonna get out? And also, still talking about fire safety, you've got the in and the out, one ingress and egress for that whole development, and you've got, what, over 400 people that are in there? What if there's a fire in there and those people have to get out? They're gonna try to get out, you got fire truck trying to get in. I have a couple more things that were from, besides fire.
Let's go a
Parking.
little bit more, we're over.
Thank you, appreciate it. Parking is, they're not even 2 cars, but the level of income that they're going for with their rent, I'll bet most of those people would wanna have 2 vehicles. What are they gonna do? They're gonna ask you, how many vehicles do you have? Do you have 1 1/8 vehicle? Then you can rent. It doesn't make sense. It's all enclosed and tight. The other thing about the handicap in the elevator, I appreciate what Judy had to say about that. I've said it before. It's not just who they rent to. If our kids had been renting a 2nd or a 3rd floor apartment, they would qualify, but we sure as heck couldn't come up and visit them. You've seen Sheldon trying to get moved around. We couldn't go visit our kids. Doesn't make sense.
Thanks, Carla. Anybody else like to speak?
Mitch, could you ask the audience to put their phones on airplane mode?
Yeah, we need to.
The beeping you're hearing is the timer.
Oh, the timer. I'm sorry. I thought it was somebody's phone.
I don't have a cell phone. They put me in charge of the time.
I apologize.
Jeff, I don't have a cell phone, so you won't hear mine.
Thanks for reminding me though, because I did forget to do that. Really, a lot of the things that I probably would have talked about today have been addressed. I'm really happy to see you guys so engaged in this. That, you know, I wish that we could have gotten there earlier, because I think people are starting to really understand this now. We seem to be under assault in this area by housing advocates. And don't be mistaken, these are lobbyists, they have agendas, and they are coming at you from every single direction, trying to get you to do these things. But you have to really start thinking about, who are we here for, what are we doing here, and why are we planning? What are we planning for the future? You know, we went to the housing town hall, and our planning administrator is there advocating for housing, and I'm sorry, I have a real problem with that, because I feel like that is somebody who should be neutral, who has taken a side and has decided that this is what we have to have here. And I don't know a lot of people from downstate moving up here who say, I can't wait to move north to northern Michigan so I can live in high density housing. You know, that's not what they want either. They could have that where they are. That's not what they're looking for here. Young people, every single one I talk to, just like Judy says, they want to buy a home. And we can do that. We can do that here, but we have to stop this other stuff that doesn't work, that isn't appropriate, because those things are what are driving costs up for people who are younger. And if we continue to hold this out there saying, well, you can charge twice or 3 times as much what this property's worth because we're gonna approve somebody coming in and doing this, then you're going to make it so it's not affordable for people. Jeff had wonderful things to say today. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for doing all of that. But, you know, I give them some credit that they did try to address a lot of things that were talked about. My problem comes to, why didn't they do that originally? I feel like they have walked in here and thought that they could just throw anything at us and everybody was just gonna go along with it. And that's rather unfortunate. Thank you.
Perfect timing, Dave. Thank you. You guys got that?
Anybody else like to speak on this case? Please.
Barb Diefenbach, Cemetery Road. Yeah, you guys have been really involved. Thank you. Couple points, Judy, when you brought about who wants to live here, who's going to live here, who needs the housing, hospital people. I was from downstate. I got recruited to work at the hospital as a manager. I lived in Bear Creek Meadows for 3 months. I did not want to stay there. That is not my end goal, to live in Bear Creek Township in the apartments. So I looked for a house and I found a house. Unfortunately, it's going to be right next to all this. But that's what people are looking for if they move up here. They want affordable housing, someplace where they can grow and live and be nice. So yes, you were absolutely on point. They don't want to long-term stay in an apartment. That is I'm trying to get out of here as soon as possible, and that is my story. Emma brought up some points about the retaining walls and we need more of the trees and stuff, and then yeah, that's great. I don't want to insult you, but I don't want this, and you're putting lipstick on a pig. I don't want these apartments. I don't care how pretty you make the outside. It's still not going to be what belongs there. Jeff, totally agree with what you said. And yeah, maybe it's gone too far down the road and it should have stopped and not gone to a PUD. But when it was denied for rezoning, the following reasons, all of the allowable uses are not consistent with uses in the vicinity. There would be, excuse me, an adverse impact on surrounding properties. The rezoning will result in spot zoning, and adequate public services cannot be provided to the properties, sewer and water at this time. PUD didn't take away any of those points. I'm sorry. So I agree with you. It just didn't seem like the right way to do this. And the last thing, which I know is going to have to be addressed, but I'm sure there's going to be another plan. I'm sorry, I got a frog. Another plan submission based on all these different changes. But in the last final PUD plan submission, C8 says all open space areas, green belts, buffers, transition areas, recreation areas, natural feature areas, setback areas, they want to know, are those standards addressed? The reply from the developer was, and I don't know if anybody else looked at this or else I am looking at this wrong. Land use calculations and recreation uses are detailed on plan sheet C4.4. Just one more sentence. The plan identifies 25% of the land devoted to active recreation uses, 42% devoted to national open space, and 18% devoted to landscape open space. If you add that up, that's 85% is open space. 85% of 20-some acres is only going to build on 3 acres. Is open space considered parking lot and roadway? Because I don't see that much, 85% of this being open space. And now you're condensing it even more. Look at those numbers. There's lies, damn lies, and statistics. Thank you, Mark Twain.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna close the public comment portion of the meeting, bring it back up to the board level. Doug, would you wanna, your choice, if you wanna say anything, you're welcome to. If you don't, I do.
A lot of good comments. Thank you for being here consistently. We are continually listening to understand your goals and objectives with this particular site. We are reacting to that. I'm gonna be asked, do I think we should continue on with this project? I believe we should. I believe it'll be a good project for the community overall. I know there's always people that don't like change. I heard enough. I know this wasn't a vote. I look at your eyes and listen to your comments and the tone of your voice. I think, I do believe we moved in the right direction on this, that there's a consensus, not majority, not everybody, I get it. But I think we took care of some things and we'll continue on. So, I'm not sure it'll be next month. I may need another month to solve some of these things and I get the answers back from the agencies also, things like the fire department and all those things. But I think we will be back. And again, what I would ask is, we're gonna email you the documents, you went through them. If you have any questions or concerns, that you just, get out there and reach out to us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Doug. Okay, bringing it back up to the table. Obviously, what Tammy said, at the beginning, we're gonna table this. There's a lot presented for you to digest. We're gonna need to see a formal site plan, just like Doug just kind of wrapped up. We're gonna need, staff reviews, we're gonna need fire review, everything's gotta come forward. So yeah, that will take a lot of time. I guess the only question I have in the meantime, do we want them to stake the corners of the building again and go through that? I mean, we're gonna need to see it. What are the board thoughts?
I would say, that they should stake the corners of the building of whatever you're gonna propose as your next site plan.
Yeah.
And then for the planning commission's discussion, tonight, Tammy gave us 2 outstanding items to address, and that was the buffer, the landscape buffer, and then the fencing. So, unless we want him to just take a stab at it on his own for next month, I would rather us discuss and to give him some feedback of what we might want to see at a minimum on whatever his next proposal is. The option is either we have a discussion and we give him some feedback, or he just takes a stab at it and offers us something next month. So I think we should discuss it. I think it would be better to give him feedback of what a minimum that we would be open to seeing.
So I would suggest, staggered lines of trees in certain places. The applicant had offered up 50 reserved trees. We could certainly take on the suggestion and ask if that'd be acceptable. We could ask for more trees in reserve. You may have another idea. What are your thoughts? Start with the trees.
Well, I guess I'm not that much into trees, but at this point, I would like to see, if he restakes it, I would like to see as a planning commission, we go out together. Not rather than individually go out and get our feel for it. I'd like, so that we could discuss it, do a walk, site walk. I think it would be nice, and maybe have a little discussion of that, together before.
The only hard part about the site walk, as I understand it, with this site is it's not real accessible for a lot of folks, so that's why we haven't done a formal site walk. We've done site walks obviously as a planning commission, but they've been really easy to walk. This one's kind of a 2-track in off-roading. It might be.
Well, I'm probably the oldest part here. I think I can walk it.
It becomes an open meeting that has to meet the Open Meetings Act. You have a quorum of the planning commission.
We could post it as that.
I just don't know.
That would be something we'd have to work through with the property owner and legal counsel.
Okay, that's all that.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Yes.
I have a thought on fencing. And I'm not visualizing fencing around 100% of the property. What I'm visualizing is right behind the clubhouse, there is a 90-degree corner there. If you started a fence there, went east to the next point, then south, and then east a little bit, and went through that light green area there, and then all the way along the southern edge, and back up to a point that's opposite the pickleball courts. We'd probably stop your fence there. I guess I'd like to know what that would cost, because I'm not looking at it 100%, but something still to keep people from going into the properties around there, and I think that would be the biggest issues.
I would agree, Jeff.
I would agree with that too. It doesn't need to be the whole thing, but it would stop.
So, our suggestion is, I mean, again, you can build a fence as high as you want.
4-foot cyclone fence.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Okay? All right.
If you guys okay with the, what about the no trespass signs, everything?
Then that would be in place with no trespass.
To me,
Although-
those aren't going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, if you have that in with your trees, then it shields, you know, like a black chain link fence, you're not gonna see as much by the time you get the trees in there.
No, that's an excellent point.
Yep.
The buffering, I don't wanna lose any of the buffering. I think I made that point a month or so ago, whenever I went out there and visited the site with the flags. If we get into large scale reduction, then I have some real serious problems. Just so you know.
Does anybody have any thoughts on heights on trees? Any thoughts on heights on trees or increased heights on trees around those two corners, southern corners?
You know, I guess I'd have to go back out to the site and stand there and visualize a 10-footer versus a, I don't know, 14-footer. I think I'd have to do that.
When the new stakes get set out, maybe that would change things too.
That could too.
Because he said he was going to mark elevation.
Yeah.
Either way, I think we need more than 50 trees. I just don't know what the right solution is.
Yeah, 50 trees doesn't go a long ways, so, and I like the fact that after it's done, to have administrative say so on where the trees are placed, because it'll make more sense at that point. So, would you be open to having a larger tree reserve than 50?
I'm open to it. Again, I like them to go where they need to go, not just, it'll tell us more when we get the building stake too about where, you know, where the gaps are. So,
Yeah, I agree.
your point's well taken, so we understand.
Do you feel we need a finite number tonight?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, I'm good for that too. At least the discussion started. So, mark the buildings, mark the corners.
And then I guess my last thing, Tammy, I think last time we resolved this, but the sidewalk that's gonna run along Anderson, that's outlined in the PUD agreement, which is to come, correct? That's not something we would have as a condition?
Right, that's if a final PUD is approved, then we would prepare a draft for your consideration, PUD agreement, and that would be a part of that.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody good? Clear as mud?
Thank you all very much for your time and commitment on this. Thank you.
Alright, so, we need a motion?
That we, table the.
Well, we're not doing any action, are we?
No,
we're just going to table it.
Table it till.
Oh, this one.
Postpone, table.
Okay, you have a motion by Judy?
I'll support.
Motion and support. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passed. Okay, any other discussion?
I would just suggest that the public stay in touch with the township and the county. It likely will not be reviewed at the county planning commission meeting because we don't have a plan at this point. And it's possible we might not have a plan at the next Bear Creek Township Planning Commission meeting either, it sounds like, so. Stay tuned, and perhaps they'll send out additional notices with, I don't believe that we're required to because we're continuing on, but I think that would be the prudent thing to do likely.
Agreed. Okay. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all, appreciate it. Tammy, you good? You gotta go, I know.
Yeah.
Alright, we're pretty much there. Was there any, we'll move on to public comments.
No, you're
Okay.
not.
What?
Public comment about.
That's what I just said, we're gonna move on to public comments.
Oh, you're
So,
on.
Yeah, right now, so the case was done, we tabled it, Is there any public comments in general? Yep, we're there, Caroline,
Thank you.
you're first and foremost.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. Go ahead.
I don't have this written out, so bear with me, but this is about the minutes that you approved tonight, that you approved. I wrote emails to every one of you, right? You all got my email about changing the minutes, and nobody made an effort to change it. They are written incorrectly. And I stated that, and I stated what was wrong. And the minutes said, just a second here. Said, and this is quoting from the minutes, she, meaning me, she believes that the master plan needs to be followed and not often changed. I did not say that. I had given every one of you a copy of what I read. I read it directly. I did not say that I believe that the master plan needs to be followed and not often changed. You all know I have attended enough meetings, and I have even stated how the master plan needs to be reviewed from the law. The master plan needs to be reviewed every 5 years. I know that. Why would it be put into the minutes that she believes that the master plan needs to be followed and often changed? I did not say that. I said, change is fine as long as that change concurs with the master plan and overall visions of the community values. I was talking about change. I wasn't talking about the master plan. But that's how it was written, and I wrote that to every one of you. I even called one of you personally and talked to him. And why you wouldn't make that amendment is beyond me. And here's the reason why. I'm sorry Tammy left, because this goes back to her and she could verify what I'm gonna say. I have been coming to meetings long enough that I asked her from planning and zoning meetings, her minutes were so accurate. And I said, they're amazing. They are amazing minutes. Why? Why do you get them that precise? And she said, because they are legal documents. These minutes can be called into a court of law. And if they're not accurate, that's what's documented. I think it is very sad that incorrect things, and not only sad, it upsets me that that was said about myself and my minutes, or what I said and what was written, as if I were saying it. And if you look at the minutes, the way they are being written recently, I know my time's short here. Give me a couple more seconds, please.
Okay.
The way the minutes are being written lately, they are being written as if I believe, I think. How can any of you know what I believe or I think? You know what I state, you know what I say, but you don't know what I think or what I believe. You can't guess it. I can say one thing, and I can be thinking the entirely different thing. The person taking the minutes cannot say, I believe, or I think. They can say, I state, and that's not the way it's done. And the minutes are not accurate, and it's not just me that this is happening to. You read your minutes. It shouldn't happen.
I gotta catch up, Caroline. So
Most
I
of the
get your
people
point.
that you take minutes on, people who are here to visit, not the public, they state what they say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak, public comment?
I'm not sure when we're doing the master plan again, but I hope that you guys can take some of the things you talked about tonight and think about them when we go back to work on that master plan. Because that's the other place you are being pushed, is in that master plan. You're being pushed to be vague so that anything can be overridden instead of being specific. And you are being pushed in a manner that is not congruent with the people who live here or the people who play here, okay? So I hope that you guys can take some of those ideas and your thoughts that you had and really think about those in terms of when we start working back on that master plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak, public comment? Tom?
Tom, you're in Bear Creek Township, just a comment on case 2502. This is all new, we've never seen anything like this in 20 plus years I've been. I just wanted this question for Mr. Chairman, staff. Would this warrant this to go back to a preliminary review process, start over at prelim, then get to this final PUD site plan? I don't know the legalities of that, just a comment, just a question on that. So that's what I was just jotting different notes. Seems like there's lots of, I should say, confusion, new information, new site plan, new stuff, lots of different things, and even Tammy and Laura said they hadn't seen any of this. So just a thought, it might be a legal question for staff or for legal counsel, but that's my thought. So that's all I got.
Interesting. Thank you. Appreciate it. Go ahead.
Karen Dodge, and just thinking this through rather quickly, but because of the east-west discrepancy, some of the information I had looked at, and I didn't do a lot of research, but because the legal notice was wrong, that there could be the possibility that all of this is null and void, going way back to even that, and that perhaps there would be a starting over then, that looking at the preliminary part of it. I'm just asking, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know anything legally, but again, that east-west discrepancy, even though we got new notification letters, it's still in the minutes wrong, it's still in legal notices wrong, and I think that probably looking or speaking with legal people, you know, how valid are those previous preliminary discussions and approvals and all of that. Might be worth looking into.
Thank you.
Mary Wilson, Bear Creek. I know nobody's gonna answer me this question, answer this question, but how does one stop this then? Because in the beginning, I felt like you said no, and they brought it back, and it was like, well, we gotta work on this together, we gotta figure this out together, and then I start hearing about trees and such whatnot, and I'm thinking, it is lipstick on a pig. How do we get back to the beginning and say, no? And I'm gonna leave it there, because that's what no, it's too big. It's going to take this and extend it further south. It just starts a whole big wave.
Thank you.
We're really into general public comment, not still on the case.
Right, absolutely. Yep, general public comment. Anybody else? Okay, we're gonna wrap up public comment, bring it back up to the board. Hi, where'd you get here?
Yeah, she's finally out of her hole.
I'm sitting here, sitting on the phone book now.
All right, going on to other business. Were there any site plans administratively reviewed?
No, we do not have an update for that.
Okay. And any information on a master plan meeting at this point?
No, I'm still waiting on more documentation or next steps from the consultant, so stay tuned.
Okay. All right, any other business to be brought before the board? Nope. Okay, with that, 8:40, I'll call the meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much, appreciate the input.